Are your Agile retrospectives extremely boring? Feel like you get around and around without ever getting anywhere? In this video, I will focus on a template for an insightful Agile retrospective. In this short video, we will review a retrospective template inside Miro. The template can be used in different tools. If you do find it useful and plan to use it in another tool, please let me know in the comments. This template focuses on 3 steps. Looking at the what data, what are we seeing? What is the group seeing? So what do we make of that information? And now what? What are we gonna do about it, if anything? This format is different than some retrospective formats that are jumping at the very beginning into what do we need to change? What do we need to do differently? In my experience observing those type of retrospectives, the ones that jumps to conclusions, what I end up seeing is a lot of action items, very brittle action items, not very specific. And in this template, I will help you define action items that are specific and useful. It is good to focus on what are we gonna do next. That's a now what step. It's important not to end up in analysis paralysis where we keep talking and talking and talking and nothing happens. But the opposite is also extremely dangerous. Jumping to doing things without really reflecting on what we have in front of us. So how do we do that? Well, we start by slowing things down. Slow down, but still fit it in 1 hour. Which, by the way, doesn't have to be dictated and the golden standard for everybody. If the team is 10 people instead of 5 people, should it still take an hour? So reflect on that. The answer is no. The time should change, the duration should change based on the context. So if someone tells you it has to be an hour, I would hardly believe that, and I would push back. Based on my experience, some retrospectives feel rushed because there is very little time, and the other important thing, there is not much purpose. We jam a bunch of people together, developers, designers, product managers, and okay, we need to run a retrospective. What is the purpose? Maybe a better use of that time is to have a separate retrospective for each group, and one with a very focused purpose. But I'm digressing. That is a different topic, maybe for another video. If you're interested in purposeful retrospective, let me know in the comments. Maybe we can have a separate recording for that. And here it is. This is the template. It's empty at the moment. As you can see at the top, there are like the number of minutes spent throughout each phase. This is a meeting that we run every couple of weeks in this company that I work with. The purpose is to reflect about our role as product managers at the company and how we could make any shift or change. First thing that we do is a check-in. Earlier I talked about 3 steps. What, so what, now what? But at the beginning we do this quick check-in to make everyone present in the room and to also check the temperature. In this case, how was your life as a product manager since your last attendance at a product retrospective? I've added this so that since some people sometimes misses those retrospectives, it's good to know what's going on in their world. In this case, I had technical difficulties as we were doing the activity. My microphone stopped working, and so instead of starting the voting, which is something that Miro provides, I've just asked the group to drag post-it notes on those faces, on what represented how their life was. And here, if we go to the completed session, you can see that we had those little post-it note. People added some context into that. After that, which should only take like a minute or 2, you can jump into appreciations. In this template, we do that so that we can appreciate each other about something that someone did for you in the product management community at this company. I give the prompt verbally, but I also leave it written down here so that people can read it. This all up should take about 10 minutes. By the way, this template, it should take about an hour. And if you sum up all the times, you'll notice there is 10 minutes of padding. That is because you should not have everything timed up to the hour that it takes, but leave a little bit of padding to jump between activities and unforeseen events. The next step, gather data, looking at the what, might be different than what you used to. Let me know in the comments what you think of it. This is about looking at events that happened in the last week or two. It shies away from jumping to conclusions. Some retrospective formats use formats like start, stop, continue, or others that I want to name. Focus on what shall we do differently, what shall we change. That is really jumping to a conclusion and skipping any reflection. This first step, this gathering data, should purely look at the what. The prompts given to the group should not be biased. This should be a time to answer those prompts silently through sticky notes. In this format, we prompt for challenging events, confusing events, satisfying events. I give a brief description of what they are, and also bad and good example of what people should write. A bad example of a challenging event is Jenkins. What does that mean? Instead, a good example is it took 4 days to figure out why continuous integration Jenkins was broken. Another bad example is James' decision to pivot versus switching technology stack from Rack middleware to Nginx. By the way, why do you think this is a bad example? Please leave it in the comments if you feel that there's something else in here that might be contributing for it to be a bad example. Satisfying event is another of the three. And again, I prepared this about 5 minutes, let people fill in their events. I usually play some chill background music. You can do that through Miro, you can do that through Zoom. The advantage of that is that people can stop listening to your music. There's an option for them to do that. And so after that, the next step is generating insights. In this specific scenario, we go round robin. That means that everyone in the product team gets a chance to talk about a topic important to them. And the reason we do this instead of voting is because we want everyone to contribute and feel included, and to feel that this retrospective is a space where they can bring topics to the table. This is something that I did for this template, for this context, for this group. Other groups benefit from prioritization and clustering, but that's a topic for another recording. And so imagine that the first person in the round robin picks the topic. It took 4 days to figure out. And so let's just pretend. Each topic gets between 5 to 10 minutes of discussion based on the energy in the group. So usually what I do is I ask that person to maybe speak for a minute and a half. And once that person gives a brief about the topic, then I ask the group to go through those prompts in the generating insights. Generating insights is the step that most likely your retrospective is missing. It's a step that allows the whole group to generate insights on a topic. Not necessarily jump into a conclusion. The prompts here help very much. For example, if the topic was Jenkins, it took 4 days to fix continuous integration. In general, I notice no one is using Jenkins anymore. Or in general, I notice we struggle to find a time for this activity. Or on one hand, it took 4 days to fix Jenkins. On the other hand, now we have a long-term solution. Or I would expect to find documentation about our Jenkins setup, but I didn't. Or I didn't expect, and basically the group fills up the ... and those prompts are really powerful. They come from Human System Dynamics. I'll put a link in the description if you want to find out more about where they come from. But that's what we do for like a few minutes, And once I see a few of those prompts filled up, I let the person that brought up the topic respond to some of those and see where the group goes, if anything new emerges about this topic. This generating insights, it's a step that is followed by deciding what to do. Generating insights is the so what after we look at the what. And then we decide what's your plan. Who is doing what? Is there something we need to do? All this is time boxed in about between 5 to 10 minutes. If you're the facilitator, I think if after 5 minutes you see there's still energy and we're going somewhere, it's a great time to start asking, okay, is there something, is there a plan that we want to take? And those prompts down here are, in my opinion, excellent to frame action items that are actionable and that are specific in terms of like what next steps we need to take. Who's doing what, when, for how long, what resources do you need, who needs to know about it, how are you going to know when you're finished. And that is the core of the retrospective. For about 30 minutes, in this instance we had time for 3 topics to dig around. There are some sketch notes that I took while we were going through this. And down there are the action items or the action plan, the next steps. Once you go through those events that people brought up, the ones that were most important to them, and not necessarily the one they picked, it could be someone else's event that they want to discuss, make sure that before the end of the time-boxed 10 minutes, you prompt the group with, is there a next step? When I ran this template with this group, we had one topic for each person, but I always prompted for, if there is anything similar to this event, please let us know. That's a simple way to let patterns emerge from the group. Once you're done, once you get closer to 5 minutes to the end, you want to bring the retrospective to a close. And in this format, we have this closing out activity. So this activity I called ROTI plus delta. The ROTI stands for Return on Time Invested, found on Adobe's book about retrospectives. It basically lists between 0 to 4 how well spent was your time during this session. I usually read the prompts and they're also written on this template. I then ask the group to clone one of those post-its and to place the post-it on the number that represents the return on time invested for the time spent together. I also ask to write on the post-it a delta and a plus. The delta is an improvement, one specific thing that if that thing happened, your vote would have been 1 point higher. So for example, for this person, it was an average session, the delta, a wider product team attendance. And then I also asked for the plus, something that they liked about the session. Because you don't want to focus too much on the negatives. You want to look for patterns of improvement, but also patterns of things that work. And this activity is really powerful when you close out, and it's also really quick. I hope this template is useful to you. I hope it gave you some insights into your next retrospective. Let me know in the comments if it does bring some new ideas. And if it doesn't, if there is something that is not clear, feel free to comment there or hit me up on Twitter. Thank you so much for watching.